The Sun's Gift, the story of solar power part 1. Ariz and the whisper of light. Have you ever stopped for a moment, looked at the sun, and thought, what if my home could live on this light? Picture it, no bills piling up, no fear of blackouts, no arguments over electricity costs, just your house glowing proudly, powered by the same sun that rises for free every morning. Sounds impossible. Maybe, but today, through this story, you and I will explore whether it truly is. Together, we'll walk through the invention of the solar system, the incredible promises it makes, and the doubts it still carries. And at the end, I'll ask you one important question. Should I install a solar system in my own home or not? But before we begin, let me welcome you. This is English Story Haven, where every story improves your English and teaches you lessons that go beyond words. If you're here, you're not just a listener. You're a companion on this journey. The weight of Ariz was not poor, but he was not free either. Each month he worked hard, earned what he could, and provided for his family. Yet, like a shadow he could never escape, the electricity bill arrived. It was always the same white envelope, harmless in appearance, but once opened, it carried numbers sharp enough to cut through his peace. Why does it keep rising? Ariz muttered one evening, slamming the paper on the table. His wife, Hina, looked at him gently. "We will manage, Ariz, we always do." He smiled weakly, but inside his heart burned. "I don't want to just manage, I want to live free." The rooftop. Evening later that night, he climbed the narrow staircase to his rooftop. It was his sanctuary, a place where he could think without judgment. The chair up there was old and cracked, but it was enough. The sunset painted the sky in shades of fire, gold, crimson, fading slowly into indigo. The air carried the sound of children playing cricket in the street, the scent of food being cooked in nearby houses, yet Ariz's eyes were fixed only on the giant orb sinking into the horizon. He whispered bitterly, "You give your light to the whole world, endlessly and for free. So, why do I, standing under you every day, still have to pay strangers just to keep a fan spinning?" He laughed at himself, talking to the sun now. "You must be losing your mind, Ariz." But then something strange happened. The whispered house itself seemed alive. The cracked walls, the tired roof, the old wires, they all seemed to breathe with him. And in that silence, he heard it. A whisper. "Ariz," it said softly, "I am tired of living on borrowed power. Every month, I watch you suffer as bills steal your joy. Why not let me drink sunlight? Why not give me what is pure, free, and endless?" Ariz froze, his heart raced. He placed his hand on the rooftop wall and whispered, "Back. Was that?" "You'd of course, houses cannot speak," but the whisper was too real to dismiss. It clung to his thoughts like smoke, a night of curiosity. At night, Ariz couldn't sleep. The whisper haunted him, so he opened a book from the community library, one he had ignored for months. It told the story of how humans had once looked at the sun and dreamed of capturing its power. In the 1800s, a young French scientist, Alexandre Becquerel, had discovered something extraordinary. Certain materials created electricity when touched by sunlight. It was called the photovoltaic effect. At first, it was weak, barely enough to flicker a lamp. But it was a beginning. Decades later, engineers built the first solar panels. They were clumsy, expensive, and unreliable. People mocked them. How can you trap the sun in glass? But dreamers never stop. By the mid-20th century, solar panels began powering satellites in space. Villages in Africa lit up with solar lanterns. Rooftops in Europe and Asia sparkled with panels, catching light and turning it into life. Humanity had finally learned to sip the sun. A new visionary closed the book and sat in silence. His heart was pounding. "So it is real," he whispered. "It has been real for more than 100 years." The rooftop no longer looked ordinary. In his mind, it transformed, covered with shining panels like silver leaves, each one drinking Sunlight silently and sending it into wires and bulbs, he saw his children studying under a lamp powered by the sky, not by bills. He saw his wife cooking while the fan spun freely. He saw himself tearing open the dreaded white envelope from the power company, only to find it blank. For the first time in years, he smiled, not the polite smile of a man pretending everything was fine, but the smile of a man who had glimpsed freedom. The first doubt, but joy is never alone. It always brings doubt. Ariz's brow furrowed. If it is so powerful, why doesn't everyone have it? What are the hidden truths? What dangers lie beneath the promise? He looked around at the rooftops of his neighbors. None had panels. Everyone still complained of bills, yet no one dared to change. Maybe it is too expensive. Maybe it is too unreliable. Maybe it is only a dream for the rich. The questions pressed on him until the whisper returned once more. Ariz, the house, murmured, "The sun has much to say. Listen, and you will know both the light and the shadows." Ariz sat back, eyes on the stars. His journey had begun, not with panels or wires, but with a whisper, a question, and a man brave enough to. The sun's promise at the rooftop was no longer just concrete and dust. To Ariz, it had become a stage where questions performed like restless actors. Each evening, he climbed those narrow stairs, carrying his doubts and dreams, and sat in the same cracked chair. The air was cooler now, the city below dimming into a scattered mosaic of lights. But above him, the sun was still there, lowering itself like a golden king leaving its throne. That night, something inside Ariz was different. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, and whispered to the horizon. "If only you could answer me," he said quietly. "Can you really set me free? Can you really feed my house, my family, my life?" The world hushed. The street below grew faint. Even the wind seemed to pause, and then the air thickened with warmth. A voice, deep, radiant, and eternal, filled his chest. The voice of the sun. "Ariz," the voice said, "calm as a river yet strong as fire, you have called Emmy, and tonight I will answer." Ariz's heart pounded. His eyes darted around, but there was no one. Only the sky glowing in its last embers. He gripped the arms of his chair, frozen between fear and awe. "Yes," the voice continued, "it is I, the sun you have watched all your life. You want to know if I can power your home, if I can break your chains. Listen closely, for I have much to give and much to teach. The first gift, freedom from bills every month." The sun said, "You suffer when an envelope arrives with numbers that rob your peace. You work, you sweat, you sacrifice, only to give away your earnings for the light that should already be yours. But if you let me in, those numbers will lose their power. Your lights will glow, your fans will spin, your fridge will hum, and not a single coin will leave your pocket. I rise each day without asking for payment. Invite me, and I will fill your home freely." Ariz's eyes closed. He pictured his children reading under a lamp that no longer carried the weight of bills. He imagined Hina cooking in comfort, the fan spinning above her without guilt. For the first time, the thought of electricity felt like a blessing instead of a burden. The second gift, Independence's voice deepened, carrying the memory of storms. "Do you remember, Ariz, the nights when darkness swallowed your street? When wires failed and neighbors cursed the silence, when your children waved notebooks as fans, sweating in the heat? If you live on me, you will never bow to that darkness again. Even when the grid collapses, your house will shine like a beacon. While others wait helplessly for power to return, your home will stand firm, glowing with my strength." That is true. Independence. Ariz felt his chest tighten. He remembered his son crying in the heat, his daughter's books damp with sweat, and then he imagined his home, standing tall in a blackout, light pouring from its windows while the street lay in shadow. His lips parted. "That would be freedom," he whispered. The third gift, Dignitith's son's tones softened, almost fatherly. "And Ariz, never forget the pride I bring. A home that drinks from me carries dignity. Neighbors will look with respect. Guests will see wisdom, strength, and progress. If one day you pass your house to your children, it will not just be walls and bricks. It will be a crown of light. Your children will not just say, "This is our home." They will say, "Our home lives on the sun." Ariz smiled faintly. He imagined his little girl bragging to her friends, her voice proud. He imagined neighbors whispering, "That is Ariz's house, the one that drinks sunlight." It wasn't arrogance, it was dignity. And dignity was priceless. The fourth gift, a cleaner world, and finally, the sun said, its voice like the wind brushing through forests, "Remember that I am not only for you. When you run your home on me, you help the world itself. No smoke will rise from burning fuels, no poisons will choke the rivers. No engines will scar the sky your children breathe. Every panel on your rooftop is not just a shield for your family. It is a gift to every family, to every tree, to every child yet to be born. You will not just save money. You will save air, water, and life itself." Ariz's eyes lifted to the horizon. He imagined rooftops across the city, glittering with silver panels like fields of light. He imagined cleaner skies, fresher air, and his children running freely without coughing from smoke. The dream stretched beyond himself now. It was no longer just about bills, it was about legacy. The fading light sun sank lower, its rays dimming into crimson. The voice grew softer, like a secret shared before parting. "Remember, Ariz, my gift is endless. I rise each day without fail, for all, rich or poor. I do not ask for money, only space. Welcome me, and I will change your life." And then, silence, the sky turned indigo, and the first stars pierced the dusk. Ariz sat unmoving, the warmth still burning on his skin. His heart raced, his mind overflowing with visions of a future he had never dared to dream. The rooftop no longer felt cracked and tired. It felt alive, like a mouth thirsting for sunlight. He stood slowly, touched the wall beside him, and whispered, "Maybe you were right, my house. Maybe you really can drink the sun." And with that, he climbed down the stairs, but inside him, something had shifted forever. He no longer carried only bills in his heart. The shadows of doubt. Next morning, Ariz woke up with sunlight streaming across his floor. The rays that had spoken to him last night now felt different, not just light, but an invitation. Yet as he rubbed his eyes and sat on the edge of his bed, a heavy thought returned. If it's so perfect, why doesn't everyone already have it? He looked out the window at the street below. Dozens of rooftops, but not a single panel. The neighbors still complained of bills, still suffered blackouts. If the sun's promise was so true, why were they still trapped? The voice of caution that evening, Ariz returned to the rooftop. He waited for the warmth, for the voice of the sun. But this time, another sound stirred inside him, Ariz. The whisper was softer, heavier, not bright like sunlight, but deep like shadow. "Who are you?" Ariz asked aloud, gripping the arms of his chair. "I am Doubt," the voice answered. "I live inside every dream, reminding you of the cost. You have heard the promises. Now listen to the price." Ariz's stomach tightened, but he nodded slowly. If he wanted truth, he had to hear both sides. The first shadow, the price of entry panels are not free, Doubt said. To drink sunlight, you must first pay heavily. Metal frames, inverters, batteries, all expensive. The cost of installing a solar system can feel like buying years of electricity at once. Can you carry that burden, Ariz? Ariz thought of his savings, small and fragile. He imagined emptying them into a rooftop covered in glass, praying it worked. His hands grew cold. The second shadow. The sky is not always clear, and even if you build it, Doubt continued, the sky is not always loyal. Clouds will come, rains will fall. Winters will weaken the light. On those days, your panels will give you little. What will you do then? Ariz remembered the monsoons, weeks of gray skies, heavy rain. Would his lights flicker? Would his fridge go silent? The thought stabbed his chest. The third shadow, space and care. Your rooftop is small. The whisper pressed on. Panels need space. The more you want, the more you must give. And when dust settles, when birds leave their marks, you must clean them or their thirst will fade. Batteries will age, needing replacement. Solar is not magic. Ariz, it is work. Ariz pictured himself climbing the rooftop again and again, wiping panels under the blazing sun, paying for new batteries after a few years. His brow tightened. The fourth shadow. What if? And finally, doubt said, its voice colder now, what if things go wrong? What if a storm cracks the panels? What if thieves see them as treasures? What if technology changes and what you buy today becomes old tomorrow? Every invention has risk. Are you ready to gamble your peace on me? Ariz's chest felt heavy. He saw the rooftop shining with panels, but then breaking under hailstones, stolen by greedy hands, or failing in silence for the first time. His dream looked fragile. A war incident buried his face in his palms. The warmth of yesterday clashed with the chill of today. The sun had promised freedom, pride, and a cleaner world. But doubt had painted a picture of risk, cost, and fragility. Which voice should he believe? Ariz lifted his head and looked at the horizon. The last rays stretched across his face, but this time they felt distant. Maybe this is why no one has done it yet, he muttered. Maybe the dream is too heavy. Keen as ice when he came downstairs. His wife noticed his silence. Ariz, you're troubled. What is it? He hesitated, then asked softly, Hina, if we could spend our savings on something that might set us free but might also fail us, would you take the risk? She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled faintly. I would listen to every truth first, both the light and the shadow. Then I would decide. Her words echoed in his mind as he lay in bed that night. Both the light and the shadow, and so Ariz knew his journey was far from over. He had heard the sun, he had heard doubt, the village debateers could no longer keep the questions locked inside his rooftop. The whisper of the house, the promise of the sun, and the warning of doubt had stirred him too deeply. He needed other voices. He needed to know what people thought. So the next evening, instead of climbing to the rooftop, he walked down the narrow lane toward the tea house at the corner of the street. The place was alive with chatter, men sipping hot tea, children running around, and the aroma of fried snacks filling the air. Ariz sat at a wooden bench, and soon the shopkeeper Karim noticed him. You look thoughtful today, Ariz. Karim said with a grin. What's on your mind? Ariz hesitated, then asked, Tell me, Karim, have you ever considered putting solar panels on your roof? The question fell like a stone in water. Conversations around them slowed, and a few heads turned. The voices of Hopi, a young man at the next table, leaned forward. I've read about it, he said eagerly. They say once you install it, you save money every month. No bills, no fear of power cuts. Imagine the freedom, another nodded. And it's good for the environment. No smoke, no pollution. If I could afford it, I'd install it tomorrow. Their eyes sparkled with excitement, as if they were already living in a world powered by sunlight. The voices of doubt, but Karim laughed, shaking his head. Freedom, maybe for the rich. My cousin in the city tried it. Do you know how much it cost him? Enough to buy a small car, and still, he complains. When it rains for days, his system gives almost nothing. He still depends on the grid. An older man sitting in the corner added, and don't forget the cleaning. Dust, birds, storms, panels don't care. You'll spend half your life wiping glass under the hot sun. What kind of freedom is that? Another chimed in, batteries. 2. They die after a few years. Replacing them is like paying another bill. Solar is not magic. It's a burden. The argument grew soon. The tea house buzzed with voices. Some spoke passionately about the dream. Think of the children. Imagine giving them a future without bills. Others scoffed at the risks. Dreams don't fill empty pockets. Better to pay bills than to waste savings. Ariz listened silently, his heart torn. Each voice sounded true in its own way. The sun's promise still burned inside him, but doubt's shadow now had human tongues. A new voice, Sethan, a calm voice, rose above the noise. It was Yasmin, the school teacher, who rarely joined such debates. She stood near the counter, holding a book in her hand. "You're all right," she said firmly. "Solar is expensive. It requires care, but do you not see? Every invention in history was once expensive, once doubted. The first cars, the first telephones, even electricity itself. People laughed, but those who believed changed the future." The room fell quiet. Even Kareem stopped pouring tea. "Maybe we cannot all afford it today," Yasmin continued, "but one person's courage can light the path. Sometimes change begins not with the many, but with one." Her words struck Ariz like lightning. For the first time, he realized this was bigger than just bills or panels. It was about courage, the courage to be the first, the walk home as he left the tea house. The voices followed him in the night air. Excitement, doubt, laughter, wisdom, all swirling together in his head. He walked slowly, his hands behind his back. The houses around him stood in darkness, their windows glowing faintly with borrowed electricity. Above them, the moon shone, silent and patient. Ariz whispered to himself, "Light is everywhere. But fear is everywhere too. Which one should I follow?" He reached his rooftop again, sat in his chair, and closed his eyes. The debate still echoed in his ears, but deep inside, he knew his journey was only from the sky that night. Ariz could not sleep. The debate at the tea house replayed in his mind, voices of excitement, voices of fear, Yasmin's wisdom cutting through them all. He felt as if the entire village was inside him, arguing in his chest. Finally, he stepped outside. The street was quiet now, wrapped in the hush of midnight. He climbed the stairs slowly, his bare feet brushing against the cool stone until he reached his rooftop. Above him, the night sky stretched endlessly, stars twinkled like scattered diamonds, and the moon watched like a silent guardian. For the first time, Ariz lifted his eyes not just to the sun that had left, but to the greater family it belonged to, the solar system. Mercury, speed isn't everything. His gaze fell toward the east, where he imagined Mercury racing around the sun, so close, so fast, Ariz whispered. But always burning, never resting, he thought of people who rushed to buy the newest technology without thinking it through. Solar power, too, demanded patience. If he rushed blindly, he could burn like Mercury. Venus, beauty without balance. Then he pictured Venus, shining bright but hidden under clouds of poison. Beautiful from afar, deadly within. Solar has beauty, Ariz murmured, clean energy, shining panels, but if I look only at its beauty and ignore its costs, I will be blinded. Balance is everything. Earth, the home that thrives on balance. His eyes softened as he thought of Earth, the planet of rivers, trees, and life. Earth lived because it balanced light and dark, heat and cold. That is what I must seek, Ariz realized. Balance, not blind faith in the sun, not blind fear of its limits, but a harmony between the two. Mars, fire that can build or burn. Mars came to mind, red, fierce, full of mystery. Scientists dreamed of life there, but its storms were harsh, its surface unforgiving. Solar is like Mars, Ariz thought. It can build dreams, or burn them if I don't respect its challenges. I must approach carefully. Jupiter, strength. With responsibility above, he imagined Jupiter, the giant. A protector of planets, a ruler of storms. Jupiter reminds me that strength must be used to protect, not to boast. If I choose solar, it is not only for me, it is for my children, my neighbors, my Earth. Strength with responsibility. That is true greatness. Saturn. Discipline is the ring around success. Then Saturn appeared in his thoughts, carrying its magnificent rings. Discipline, Ariz whispered. Those rings are like the care solar demands, cleaning, maintenance, patience. Without discipline, even the greatest system collapses. Solar is not just panels, it is responsibility. The distant ones, Uranus and Neptune. Finally, he imagined the distant planets, Uranus and Neptune, far away, cold and quiet. They remind me of those who are different, far from the crowd. Perhaps choosing solar will make me different too. Well, Others laugh or doubt, but even those on the edge of the sky still shine. And maybe, so will I. A universe of lessons. The sky above him no longer looked silent. Every planet seemed alive, whispering its lesson. Mercury taught patience, Venus taught balance, Earth taught harmony, Mars taught respect, Jupiter taught responsibility, Saturn taught discipline, Uranus and Neptune taught courage to be different. Ariz pressed his hand to his heart. For the first time, the solar system above and the solar system of panels he dreamed about on his rooftop felt connected. Both were about light, balance, and courage. A quiet resolve sat there for hours, letting the stars keep him company. Doubt had not vanished, but neither had hope. Instead, both stood side by side inside him, light and shadow, promise and price. As dawn began to soften the sky, Ariz rose from his chair. His journey was not over, but something inside him had shifted. The sky had given him more than beauty. It had given him perspective. And now, he knew. The final choice would not just be about bills or panels. It would be about who he wanted. The night sky was fading into dawn when Ariz finally rose from his chair. His rooftop, once an ordinary slab of stone, had become a theater of voices. The whisper of his house, the promise of the sun, the warning of doubt, the arguments of neighbors, and the quiet wisdom of the planets above. But now, it was time to gather them all. Time to face himself. The gathering of voices. The first light broke across the horizon. Ariz closed his eyes and let each voice return. The sun whispered with pride, freedom, independence, dignity, a cleaner world. Doubt pressed back. High costs, cloudy days, endless care, fragile risks. The neighbors argued. Solar is the future. No, it's a trap for the rich. And Yasmin, the school teacher, cut through them all. Every invention begins with one person brave enough to try. Ariz placed his hand on the wall of his rooftop. It felt warm, alive. The voices circled him like vines, but now, he realized they were no longer fighting. They were waiting for him to decide. A walk through the village. Later that morning, he walked through the village streets. Each house looked the same as yesterday. Wires hanging, bills piling, people complaining of power cuts, but Ariz saw them differently now. This is not just about panels, he thought. It's about courage. About whether I want to live chained to bills or risk stepping into freedom. Children ran past him, laughing, chasing a ball. One boy shouted, "Ariz, uncle, when will the lights stop cutting off?" Everyone laughed, but Ariz paused. He thought, perhaps one day my house could be the answer. The mirror inside it. That evening, back on the rooftop, he stood in front of a small mirror his wife had left to dry in the sun. He looked at his reflection, tired eyes, calloused hands. A man caught between fear and hope. Ariz, he whispered to himself, this is not about the sun. It is about you. Do you have the courage to be different? Do you have the patience to carry the cost? Do you have the faith to balance both light and shadow? The mirror didn't answer, but the silence felt sacred. He realized the decision was no longer only about electricity. It was about what kind of man he wanted to be. The house speaks once. More as the sky deepened into twilight, the whisper of his house returned one last time. Ariz, it said gently, I will live however you choose. If you keep feeding me wires, I will survive. If you give me sunlight, I will thrive. But remember, I am your reflection. When I glow, you glow. When I am chained, you are chained. The choice is not mine. It is yours. Tears pricked his eyes. He rested his forehead against the wall. For the first time, he understood. The house had never truly spoken. The whispers had always been his own heart. Turning to the audience, Aya lifted his head, his gaze steady, his voice calm. I have heard every side. I know the promises and the risks. I know the hope and the fear, but now, my friends, the final voice I need is yours. He stepped closer, as though speaking directly to someone standing on the rooftop with him. You have walked with me through this story, through the whispers, the promises, the doubts, the debates, even the lessons, written in the stars. And now, I must ask you, should I install a solar system in my home, or should I wait? Did this story help you see the sun and life itself in a new way? Did it touch you, teach you, or make you think? His voice grew softer, almost a plea. Tell me in the comments below. Your advice will guide my decision, and your thoughts will tell me if this journey was worth it. A final look at the sky. The last rays of the day stretched across his rooftop, warm and golden. Ariz raised his face to the sun, no longer as a prisoner begging for freedom, but as a friend seeking counsel. For the first time, he did not feel alone. He had the voices of his house, his neighbors, his teacher, the planets, and now the voices of those who would hear his story. The choice was no longer only his. It belonged to all who had listened. And with that, Ariz smiled faintly, whispering into the wind, "Let the people decide."